Take a Pew.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Take A Pew. I'm Ian Wishart, and I'm joined by Simon Clark.
Hello, mate. Hello, everyone.
And you find us today at the London headquarters of the EA.
What, the Environment Agency?
No, this is a very different organisation and much more relevant for the Take A Pew podcast. It's the Evangelical Alliance. And we're here to meet their CEO, Gavin Calver. Gavin, really delighted that you've been able to squeeze us into what I know is an incredibly busy schedule. So thank you for having us, and please, take a pew.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Hi, Gavin. It's great to meet you. Perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself to our lovely listeners.
Yeah, no, it's great to be with you all. I'm Gavin. I have been married to the same wife, which is good, for 20 years. And we've got two kids, Emily and Daniel. I lead the EA, which is a great privilege. And away from all of that, keen runner and a massive AFC Wimbledon football fan.
All right, well, we might explore that in due course, you never know. But now, as ever on Take A Pew, we hope to get to know the human being behind the job title. And so, Gavin, as well as jogging through your ministry, we'd like to have a natter about your background, your hobbies, a few of your favourite things, and of course, your perfect packed lunch.
Yes, and as well as lapping up your spiritual pearl of wisdom, asking you one of my random questions.
Yes, and I apologise in advance to all concerned for that last bit. Anyway, Gavin, let's crack on. Perhaps we can set the scene by having a look at the young Gavin Calver. And just for a change on Take A Pew, we're going to start with one of our regular features and ask you a question. And that question is...
What were you like at school? Were you a little bit geeky? Or were you a little bit freaky? Or were you a little bit cheeky? What were you like at school?
Yes, Gav, what were you like at school?
That's a great question. I wasn't a Christian at school. That's the first thing I'll say. Right. I was a bit of a naughty boy, used to get in a lot of mischief. I'll tell you a story that sums up what I was like at school. Yeah. At my school, they were opening a new building and Princess Margaret was coming to open it. And me and two other people, which would not be who you'd have expected, were called to the head teacher's office and told that we would be in the back car park because she would come to the back car park in order to avoid the sort of mess and noise of the front. And we were the three that were going to welcome her first to the school with this teacher. I was so honoured. I mean, I was thinking, what on earth have you picked us three for? We cause all the problems. We're in this back car park for about an hour and a half. And then I say to the teacher, when's Princess Margaret coming? What's happening? And he says, she's been and she's gone again. You three were put in this back car park in order to make sure that you didn't cause any problems. That kind of tells you what I was like at school. Okay. At the same time, I captained the sports team. I was involved in that stuff.
Right.
But interesting.
Yeah, okay. Because you talked about being a bit of a tearaway, perhaps, and obviously the background is you come from quite a famous Christian dynasty, really, don't you? So does that make you rebel a little bit and turn the other way, do you think?
Well, I come from the Christian mafia, is what you're alluding to.
Right. Yeah. I didn't like to use the word mafia.
Seventh generation ordained, yeah.
Is it really?
And I don't know if that's what made me do it. I'm one of four kids. The other three have never sinned. That's how I view it. Yeah. And for me, it was just like, I just wanted to make sure it was for myself. So I got banned from church when I was 14. Various challenges along the way.
What was that, murder? Or?
No, just consistently difficult behaviour. Every Sunday I would ask to make my church Sunday school teacher's life as bad as possible. And every Sunday the Lord answered my prayer. But no, I kicked against the system a bit. What I would say is everything the church loves about me as an adult, they hated about me as a young person.
Right.
So I'm brave, I'll go against the status quo, I'll make a stand. But I'm redeemed now.
Right.
Yeah. But I had to find it for myself. It doesn't mean much if it's not for yourself. Yeah. And so I threw myself into other things. But it's interesting, I became a Christian just before leaving school.
Okay.
And I remember about 10 years ago, my old RE teacher found me on Facebook. And she sends me a message that says something like, "You're married. Yeah. You've got children. You're a Christian. What on earth happened to you? You're not in prison." Yeah. And so I got to share a few messages with one of our old teachers about Jesus as well. So it's, you're finding your way, aren't you?
Yeah.
But I found my way in the end to Jesus, which is what matters.
Well, hallelujah. Praise the Lord for that. And whereabouts did you grow up? Where?
Grew up in South London,
a
place called Forest Hill. Went to school in New Cross.
Right.
I loved South London. I now live in North West London. It's a bit nicer.
Yeah.
But no, South London, loved it.
Yeah. I spent a few years in South Norwood.
There you go.
Handy for the Palace. Not that. Well, Simon,
Well, I'm a Palace fan,
you're a
yeah.
Palace fan. But
Well, no, we don't like Palace.
no. We'll come back to that. Actually, I'm a bit croaky today because I was down in Bournemouth last night and I was watching them play football and I shouted
not
rather
good, though,
too
was it?
loudly.
It's funny you should mention Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Their manager, I went to school with him and played in the same football team as Scotty Parker.
Oh, there we
So
go.
there you go, small world.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, he probably wasn't a very happy bunny last night, nor was I. But anyway, there we go. Let's move on. Sort of happy family background, was it?
Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, my parents did all right. Yeah, no, it was a good home to grow up in. I never doubted Jesus.
Yeah.
Let's get one thing clear, right? He was just like an auntie figure.
Right.
Someone I knew existed but didn't like hanging out with.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was never atheist, agnostic, anything like that.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
just, I'm all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't prepared to be all yet. So as a teenager, I kind of, if I had to go to Spring Harvest, I went. But I didn't necessarily go to the groups, etc.
Did you get stuck in and ask difficult questions then, or did you just not get that involved in the whole debating sort of thing?
The problem is, because of what I grew up around, I've seen stuff that could never make me doubt the Lord. People get prayed for and get out of wheelchairs. Lives completely changed. There was no... and I'm no great philosopher. I feel sorry for people that are too clever. Because the deeper meaning of life, you can end up just philosophizing all the time. So it wasn't that I was stuck on big questions. It was just, is this Christianity what I want to give my whole life to or not?
Right.
And if I'm honest, without sounding too judgmental, a lot of the Christians I saw didn't make that appealing. And so that was a bit of a journey.
Yeah. But if we, at that point, look back if you reflect over the whole of your childhood and all the many facets of it, we have another question for you. And that question is...
What's your fondest childhood memory? What's your fondest of all your childhood memories? What's your fondest?
Oh. Yes, Gavin, what's your fondest childhood memory?
That's a great question. I think it's probably, I've always liked animals. And so I think it's probably a combination of being little and either seeing the pandas at London Zoo before they left,
Okay.
or a few years later getting to go to SeaWorld and seeing all the big these killer whales and dolphins.
Yeah.
It's pretty animal associated actually.
That's interesting.
Because I now have all kinds of questions about whether they should be in cages or not.
Yeah.
But the interaction and the seeing, that's a lot of my childhood. That was a lot of the stuff I loved.
Yeah.
You got any pets now or anything?
Do you know what? With no pets. I'm not actually that interested in domestic animals. It's the big scary stuff.
The big scary stuff.
Yeah, and my children get annoyed because what I say to them when I ask for they keep asking for a dog.
Yeah.
And I have this terrible line you just shouldn't use, but I keep saying to them, until every person in the world has enough food to eat, I will not be paying to feed an animal. It's logical, but it's
really argue.
very hypocritical.
It probably is, yeah, a little bit harsh anyway. But childhood obviously came to its natural end, and so you finished school. What did you decide to do after school?
Well, there was an interesting chapter just before leaving school, which was my mum and dad moved to America when I was 17. It was a massive deal. And they went to run the American equivalent of Tier Fund.
Wow.
And I remember my dad taking me out to talk about this. And I said to him, if a loving God splits the family up, he can stuff himself. I didn't say it that nicely.
No.
I said, I won't spend another day pretending to be a Christian if you go.
Yeah.
And he went. And so I moved in with this couple who worked for the church I was in, but were from Yorkshire, and it was quite intimidating. And you lived with this couple, and I didn't really know what to do in it. Actually, I'm not sure if this is appropriate for this podcast, but it seems like a fun one. I remember 3 days into living with them, I had the scariest moment of my life, which was when it was time for me to do a number 2 for the first time in this house. My parents, 3 days earlier, my parents have moved to the other side of the world. I'm 17, I'm feeling lonely, isolated, and wary. I go to the loo, I flush the loo, and it all pours out the top, and I can't stop it. It's pouring out everywhere, it's covering the walls, it's going through the floor. I'm hopeless, don't know what to do. Eventually I stop it, and then I go down to the kitchen, I get the cloths for cleaning the plates and stuff, and I kind of cleaning walls and things. And then this guy comes back, and he comes to his house, and he's like, what have you done to my house? I'll tell him what he's done. And as a result, they open up the loo at the end of the garden that's not been used for years. And from then on, that's what I have to use.
That's
that was
Gav's loo.
terrifying.
Gav's lab.
Yeah.
Sign on the door,
But it was 9 months after that,
Yeah.
after I'd tried some of the stuff that I don't want to glamorise, 'cause it's not glamorous,
Yeah.
but that the world has to offer, and it came back wanting.
Yeah.
The day after my 18th birthday party, Sat on a park bench in Mayo Park in South East London, surrendered my life to Jesus on my own.
Well, okay.
That changed everything.
As you do.
Yeah, I prayed 2 prayers. I gave my life to Jesus, then I said, I'll go wherever, whatever, and whenever for you. Because it's all or nothing, you see. This is where it's a different...
Yeah, getting to know that.
And so I was absolutely in. And so straight after school, funnily enough, and to everyone's surprise, I found myself going to London Bible College to train for ministry, which was the last thing I wanted to do. But that was that.
Yeah. Once you'd made that decision, you had to go with it.
How did you get through all that, though? So there's a lot of studying, a lot of,
Yeah.
Is it your thing?
Nah, a bit. I met my wife there, that was good. And yeah, it was, the problem when I went to London Bible College, if I was honest, is I'd only been a Christian about 9 months. I wasn't a baby Christian because I'd done that stuff already, but I hadn't been a Christian that long, but everyone knew who my parents were. So they expected me to be a certain type of Christian. So I got asked 4 times in my first month at London Bible College if I was actually a Christian, because they'd expected me to be a different type of person, but actually I was about the lost. So I would spend my time off the campus trying to tell people about Jesus, when everyone on the campus was telling each other why they were wrong about their view on the nature of hell or something. And so it was challenging. And in the end, you just you learn stuff, you grow, and you have the grace in the later years when you meet all these people to say how wonderful it was to study with them and thank you for never judging me, even though you know in your heart. But it was fine. And it was a good 3 years, very formative. And
so it was 3 years.
3 years.
And was that a specific Baptist thing, or was it just a general?
No, London Bible College, as London School of Theology as it is now, is pan-denominational. So it wasn't. I got Baptist ordained later.
Right. Okay.
But no, that was just general theological. So it was a theological degree
basically. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So then you had another decision to make after that, I guess.
Yeah. Then I got married that summer afterwards. Great woman, Anne. She's a plastic scouser. She's from the Wirral. And she's brilliant. And we moved to Halesowen, which is a random place in the Midlands, to work for Youth for Christ.
Oh, yeah.
I went to work for Youth for Christ, leading a gap year program. In the end, I'm all about reaching the lost. And Youth for Christ was an amazing place. And we actually stayed there for 14 years, which for our generation is quite unusual.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're supposed to do 4 or 5 jobs by the time you're 30. I'm now 41. I've worked for 2 organisations.
Wow. So, and where did the ordained Baptist bit come in?
About 2007, I think.
Yeah.
So that was from left field. They decided they wanted to start ordaining evangelists within the Baptist Union.
Okay.
And the church that I had as my placement church when I was at LBC was Stanmore Baptist. Yeah. And they were like because at Youth for Christ you have to raise your wage through support and stuff. They were like a sending church. So Stanmore asked if I would consider doing this thing. It actually really helped because Youth for Christ does sound a bit like a cult. It really isn't, but it sounds a bit like it. So secular media, prisons, schools, Reverend Gavin Calver, is quite helpful.
Yes, of course.
But I'm ordained as an evangelist, which is a full ministerial thing. But that was helpful.
Yeah. So you mentioned Anne there, and we'll come on to mention, I'm sure, the book, or a book that you've got out at the moment called Unleashed, and which I did read. I promise I read it.
You did tell me you read it.
But I was just reading it again, actually, just this week, and I thought that was great because there's, you have a very effective way of communicating, and you seem to be able to translate that to the written word as well. So there's all that great communication going on, and then Anne just comes in with all these amazing supernatural experiences. It just pops up, and there's another ridiculous thing that's happened, an amazing healing that's happened. I know you have a few as well. So
she's a woman of the supernatural, no doubt about that, and a real prophetic insight and stuff. But she's amazing. I mean, if we want to use Christianese, we're really blessed to have found each other, right? The other side as well, you just feel a bit lucky because we met when we were kids. Really, we were 19 when we met, 18, and fell in love, and it's been great. But she's my greatest challenger, but also my greatest encourager, but more challenger than encourager, to be honest. But yeah, it's been amazing, and we've served together. We've directly worked together. We now write and preach a bit together. But she's a church leader. I do within EA, and that's great. But we have had it's been a right adventure. I tell you that.
Great. Well done. Okay, so Youth for Christ for quite a long time, and then. So because you've been involved in New Wine, obviously you've been involved in Spring Harvest, and how does that all tie in?
How does it all fit together? I was at Youth for Christ for 14 years, the last 6 of which I led it. So I did 3 different roles at Youth for Christ. During those Youth for Christ times, for 10 years of that, I ran the youth work for New Wine, which was really fun. So that was just sort of along the side. So that was great.
Which is obviously a Christian
big
festival.
Christian gathering. That was great.
Yeah.
Spring Harvest comes in because my dad started Spring Harvest.
Yeah.
By the way, I need a good idea because my old man and my granddad both run the EA, but my granddad started Tear Fund and my dad started Spring Harvest. So if anyone's got any good ideas, let me know. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that would be interesting to tap into that, actually.
Yeah.
In the environment. Some sort of environmentally friendly.
Well, there's got to be something. It just needs to be a juggernaut 30 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the Spring Harvest piece has always been in my DNA as well. So I joined the Spring Harvest leadership team probably about 9 years ago, and was then involved and actually led that team for a few years. But to be honest, stepped back about 18 months ago. Why? Because I felt the Lord challenged me, you can't ride two horses. And focus is needed in this season. And I'm the leader of the Evangelical Alliance. Now, I started leading Spring Harvest before I led the EA, which was fine. But there are 14 member organisations of the EA that have events. I mustn't have a favourite. But also, you just don't have the capacity. And so I need to focus on leading EA. So Spring Harvest will always be special to me. New Wine will always be special to me. Youth for Christ will always be special to me. But there's different seasons, different focus.
And you got involved in the EA
6 years ago. So I started leading it 2 years ago. But I came from Youth for Christ to here as Director of Mission. Which was great because it was all the fun bits of the EA without the complicated bits. The new job is slightly more complex.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because you've got to have a strategy. You've got a strategic plan. I've been on the website. You got your 7 ways of working. So you've got that sort of corporate adoption, haven't you? That you've got to kind of sort of adhere to, haven't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the EA was founded in 1846, 175 years ago, and it was founded on the principle of united action and holistic mission. Now, the holistic mission bit is like it's easy for me. That's what I do. But the united action bit's challenging because sometimes that's on issues and stuff you don't want to talk about. Like even at the moment, we're working with government on some issues that most Christians wouldn't want to touch with a barge pole. But if we don't do it, there's religious liberty
Someone
issues
has to.
that will cause a problem that will mean that you then can't preach parts of the Bible in your church or you can't do various things. And so the challenge with the EA job is you're basically you're a bit out there on a limb. And people attack, and the social media engagement stuff's really hard. But that's okay. I want to be loved by everyone in my generation, but if I have to be Stephen for the sake of the gospel, that's okay. And so as long as Jesus is standing, we're okay.
Great. Well, and here we are at the London HQ, which is very appropriate for a Christian organisation at King's Cross. I quite like that connection.
I like that.
And
it's good for the trains too.
Well, that helps. I think my deepest question, if you like, about you and the Evangelical Alliance is, have you got the best office?
I haven't got an office.
Oh, I knew you'd say that.
I haven't got an office. I'm part of the open plan part. Now, a couple of people have got offices, but I'm in amongst the crowd. I have no illusions of grandeur, right? The Lord gave me 2 or 3 gifts. I can communicate. I can set a vision and people will come with me. And I can release some funds. That seems to be it. It was actually so in Youth for Christ, I was one of the worst youth workers. In the EA, I'm not one of the best people at campaigning or advocacy or one of the best people at leading a church or anything else. You just need to know what you have. So what I happen to have in my locker tends to fall then with the job I do. But I want to be close to people. I want to lead an EA. I felt when I took it over, the Lord said 2 things. EA needs to be braver in the next 10 years than it's ever been. But it also needs to be kinder than it's ever been. And I want to lead a brave and kind EA. A brave and kind EA is one that's close to people, not detached.
That's such an important word, isn't it? I mean, it's all a bit serious for Take A Pew, isn't it? But kind, I think, is such an important word. Being kind and tender-hearted, it's been there for 2,000 years for us, hasn't it? But,
well, I ask the Lord every day, give me a thick skin and a soft heart. I find thick skin easy.
Right.
Especially when you're getting a lot of attack and a lot of challenge. But actually, you need 2. I want the skin of a rhino, but I want the softest of hearts.
It's a tough combination, isn't it? Actually,
Do you get angry? Do people irritate you?
Oh,
Do you get really?
Okay. I get social media is where it gets most ridiculous, and it's funny with hindsight, but in the moment it isn't. So I remember one particular issue we were dealing with, where I got 2,000 messages of hate in 12 hours on social media, and you look back at it and you think the one I got the best was this. At Gav Calver, you are the scum of the earth and are going to burn in hell. # love wins. They don't even get the irony. So, get a lot of stick. But you know what? That comes to the territory. Jesus got quite a lot of stick.
Yes.
Yeah.
Funny that.
True.
Yes. So you're such a busy chap, aren't you, though? So
Not too busy. Not too busy. But busyness is an idol, and we mustn't follow that.
No, yeah,
idol.
I agree entirely with that. Yeah. Well, one of the things I always found at work, and I say this quite regularly, don't I? It's about in terms of valuing getting a bit serious, but valuing yourself in your own status. And you'd get in a lift. I was being in the big offices in London and getting a lift. Oh, how are you? Oh, so busy. Yeah. Everyone will always goes out of their way to say how busy they are, and I would pride myself saying, yeah, it's all right. Yeah.
When I was first at Youth for Christ, our boss, a great friend of mine, mentor of mine, I think, a guy called Roy Crown, was always busy. There was a culture, we're too busy. Yeah. So me and some of the other leadership team members decided to have some fun. Right. And we decided to take it in turns to email Roy. And the email basically said this: "Hi Roy, hope you're doing well. I'm just struggling today because I'm literally at a bit of a loose end. I don't know what to do with my time." And by the time we got to the second or third day, he totally caught on to us. But I think sometimes we need to diffuse that. Because, sometimes for the church, you can think that the busier you are and the poorer you are, the holier you are, it's not always necessarily like that. Yeah. And to some extent, what we need to start saying is actually let's use our time strategically. So I said about Spring Harvest before, could I have found capacity in my week to run Spring Harvest and EA? Possibly. But if I had done, would I have run either well? No. And would I then have been a good dad and a good friend and a good husband? No. So it's making those choices.
So, but you have plenty to do, which is good.
Oh, I'm not a loose end, that's for sure.
Because you travel around speaking still, I guess. So,
yeah.
I mean, how does that feel? Do you enjoy that? And if you look at writing as well, do you prefer speaking or writing? Or
speaking by a mile. Anne likes writing, right?
Yeah.
And I write under some level of coercion. No, it's not true. But I don't love writing. I write to get the message out wider.
Yeah, okay.
But speaking, I love speaking.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about speaking is it's half an hour and no one else can get you.
Right.
We're living in a world now of everything's pinging everywhere, isn't it? Yeah. And it's even like doing this, right? We're having a chat, right? It means for the next hour we're not distracted. Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah. And I like the freedom of that. But also, there's that old cheesy Eric Liddell thing about his fast. God made me fast, and when I run, I feel His pleasure. Yeah. I feel like God made me to communicate His gospel, and when I do so, I feel His pleasure. Yeah. And so it's wonderful now to be back in church buildings. Yeah. It's wonderful to see people with your own eyes give their lives to Jesus. It's fabulous to not preach into my iPhone and assume that my jokes are funny. Yeah. It's just kind of like, it's lovely to be back.
Yeah. There was the Spring Harvest at Home, by the way. That was fantastic. Thank you.
It was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, it was really quick as well. The amazing thing with that was how quickly it was done, how... It looks very amateurish now, but for the moment then it was amazing. Yeah. And because here's the interesting thing for the church, right? Church going forward, it's not a set menu anymore, it's a buffet. So every church in the country used to be 10:30, 6:30. Everything's to do with milk, nothing to do with Jesus. You used to milk the cow at 9, milk the cow at 5, took half an hour to get the milk, half an hour to get clean, half an hour to get to church. Absolutely nothing sacred about 10:30 and 6:30. Wow. And going forward, church is not a set menu, it's a buffet. And we're all broadcasters. So now we've got all these skills. How do we do it differently? It's a fascinating time to be alive. Yeah.
It is really interesting. And it's really interesting what the skills that people have, as you say, have amassed. Just the idea of the derisory scorn that's laden upon people who film something in portrait. Like 2 years ago, no one had any idea he was doing landscape.
Yeah, but it's fair enough. Don't do portrait.
No, it's obviously ridiculous, and it should be shamed and excluded from society, ideally. So that's. And do you have a home church? You're involved in a sort of your own church, and have you planted a church?
My wife Anne is planting home churches in small areas all over the UK. Actually, so we're involved in. Anne's also Baptist ordained and was associate minister in our Baptist church, but has left that to start Unleashed churches, which are off the back of the book, living out what we wrote. Yeah. So an Unleashed church would get up to about 25, then plant again. Yeah. So we're involved in one where we live. There's about 22 of us in this Unleashed church who meet on a Sunday. We meet at sort of 1, a couple of hours of food, then a bit of fun, maybe a game of football or whatever else it would be, rolling then into a time of worship, prayer and ministry together. It's very natural. Yeah. About a quarter of the people coming aren't Christians, but they love it, and there's a sense of community, and it's shared living. It's trying to be the Acts church today. Don't get me wrong, it's not the answer for everyone, but like I say, going forward, church is a buffet, not a set menu. Yeah. And I think a contribution that gets closer to people, where people share life more, that returns more to the unschooled, ordinary folk of the early church. It's really exciting.
So how do you get that going? How do you get the plant, how does it start? How does it...
Well, let's say you wanted to do one.
Yeah.
You'd say, for a start, what it doesn't need is it doesn't need a manse, it doesn't need a wage, it doesn't need so you can do it on the side of what you do anyway and be bivocational. So you might start one and you might say, okay, myself, me and Anne say, and another couple pray. Then there's another family comes along. Then suddenly you've got one.
Yeah.
Then what happens is you reach some friends, they come in, because the idea is as well is you hold each other to account as to who you're witnessing to, and then people come into that space.
Yeah.
Then it gets to a certain number, it plants out. It's the most natural thing possible. It's so early church in that sense. The challenge is how you make sure that, how does one unleashed church feel like another one as well, and another one, and all of that's quite challenging. But it's a good adventure.
It's great, particularly when it's in its youth, and then the real pressure that I guess any established churches have experienced is how do you retain that when you have to get, because you have to get institutional at some point, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you have to maintain a brand or a style or set of beliefs or whatever, don't you say?
Yeah,
That'd be an interesting challenge, but it sounds really exciting.
Well, Anne finds that challenging too, because she's like, if it was her, we're quite influenced by the Iranian church, fastest growing church in the world. Right, okay. The problem is in the UK, we want Iranian results with UK comfort. We need to deal with that. Yeah. But if you look at church where it's growing, it's just exploding, and it's just so natural. Yeah. And what we want here is to see something similar, not dissimilar, you know. But Anne would have it totally underground, everything. But actually, when you're in a place where you can have charity status and you can get the chancellor to give you gift aid on any, why wouldn't you? But there's always a challenge with that.
Nice.
It's great for our kids as well, which has really surprised me.
Okay.
My years in Youth for Christ thought the best thing to do is relevant youth work separate from everyone. My years now make me think maybe people just need family.
Yeah. So you had the Unleashed book, you've got Unleashed churches, so you're going to have Unleashed range of swimwear coming up?
Not modelled by me.
I'm sure there'll be other things coming
Running
up.
gear, maybe.
Yes. Well, talking of which, actually,
Yes.
so that's all, it's all worky stuff and obviously spiritual family life as well. Other interests, and you mentioned at the top of the show, keen runner, I think, and talked about Wimbledon as well. So do you manage to get enough time to do those things?
Just get up earlier.
Yeah.
So I went running this morning, got up at 5:30, went for a little loosener in order to prepare me for the day. And the running's about time with Jesus, actually.
Yeah.
So when our kids were first born, you suddenly realise all of those habits you've developed don't work. So we were really good pre-kids, get up at 6, read Bible, pray. It doesn't work when you're a little one. So the only way to get quiet with the Lord was to get out of the house. So I get out of the house, nothing in my ears. I don't understand runners with things in their ears. There's enough noise. Nothing in my ears. First mile, I sort myself out. Then I say to the Lord, we've got 40 minutes, 6 odd miles, what do you want to say? And you just have a chat, and it's amazing. So I do it for that. The Wimbledon stuff, I mean,
can I just ask you, do you do the park run stuff? Do you get
no, I
involved in the park run?
no, I'm going to sound really annoying here. It's not long enough.
Yeah.
So park run's only 3 miles, and park run's noisy. I run to spend time with Jesus in a solitary environment.
Yeah.
And then the football, I've been a Wimbledon fan forever, right? Ever since they used to play a dump called Selhurst Park, because I grew up in South London. And so I had a season ticket throughout the 90s. Then we were in the Midlands, couldn't do it so much. I go with both my children. My wife doesn't go. Both my kids, we've got season tickets at Plough Lane. I've taken my kids since they were 3. I used to have a 6-pocket strategy. Right, so I'd wear enough things to have 6 pockets. So every 15 minutes, you'd give them, whether it was a toy from the pound shop or a packet of sweets, to get them. And then by the time they were 5 or 6, they loved it. So my kids love it as much as me, and it's just great fun.
Sounds like training a dog, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit like that. And Jesus supports Wimbledon, just to be clear.
Yes.
Because he cares about the marginalised, the mistreated, and those who've been forced to live in exile. So it's we love it, and it's great escapism as well. And I think, do you know what? I just think sometimes we can get a bit dull. It's good to have interests. But what's been amazing is a lot of my interests are now called parenting. Whereas for years it was Peppa Pig or various other things. Now my parenting is to take my children to watch Wimbledon. What a sacrifice.
That's great, yeah. I was thinking about, as I say, I'm a bit croaky today because of shouting at Bournemouth yesterday. I was thinking, as a Christian, I don't know whether you get involved in chants that are sung at football matches, but that's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? You know, if you're in the middle of the crowd and you're saying the referee's not a very nice person, do you berate your fellow supporters and say, well, God loves him?
When my children were small, I would speak to other supporters about whether they wanted us to have a football team in 30 years' time. because it's one thing to say these, but now let's be honest. I mean, when it came to picking our season tickets, Wimbledon got a new ground, and I said to my kids, we've got 2 choices: raucous, loud home end, or best view in the ground in the family stand. My son went for the family stand. My daughter said raucous home end. I had the casting vote. It was always going to be raucous home end. So they've learned the art that I learned as a teenager going with my dad of singing the whole song but leaving out the word. And I've continued something very annoying that I used to hate my dad saying. My dad used to always say when the chant happened, a certain chant about the referee, isn't it extraordinary that the fans here have such intimate details about the referee's private life? I used to find it so annoying. I now find myself saying the same thing to my children. So some things keep going. Yeah. But you know what? You can honour the Lord and love your football. You don't need to be drawn into that. And one of the things I always say, lots of people sort of say to me, but how could I be a Christian? Because football's my God. I'm like, you just haven't met the real one. Because football's amazing, and I love football as much as the next person. But when you meet Jesus, it shines a light on everything, puts it in context.
You play a bit, don't you? Play a bit of football?
I did play a bit. I'm getting a bit old now. So I hung up my boots 2 years ago.
Okay, that's not bad.
I was part of a world record breaking thing. We at Youth for Christ. 48 hours. We played five-side football for. I was quite a good footballer when I was young. My son's taking over now. The problem when you've got kids is, I've got an 11-year-old and 14-year-old. They've got so many interests. The only way I could have kept playing football would have been to have been away from them and not allow them to develop. Whereas my son, I was a goalkeeper. My son's a goalkeeper. Oh, right. He trains 3 times a week and he plays for the under-12s team of a semi-pro club, which is great. He's doing well. But you have to make those choices. And also, I'll be honest, right? We had our staff conference a few weeks ago as EA. That's the one time a year I play with adults. I play with my kids quite a lot. And you can't do what you used to be able to do.
I know,
my head says one thing, my body says another.
It's horrible.
And I've run loads, right? So I'm fitter than I've ever been. But the next day, parts of my body are hurting and where I didn't realise I had muscles anymore.
I remember I played an 11-side game and I hadn't played one for ages. This is quite a few years ago now. But and it was like, so I got the ball, tricky little run down the wing. I thought, this is all right, loved it in the middle. Then that was it.
That was it. You were knackered.
I couldn't move. Do not give me the ball for the rest of the game. But anyway, it's fun. Anyway, we're coming up on time to think about lunch, Gavin. But before that, we'd just like to play a little game we call My Favourite Things.
My favourite things.
Yes, Gavin, our favourite things. Very simple game. We just give you a category and you tell us your favourite thing in that category. Our first category is a standing item on the show. It's always your favourite book of the Bible.
John. Simple, really. All the stuff about Jesus, not Sunday school stories everyone knows.
Yeah.
So a more interesting thing and deep theology done accessibly.
Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, we've had that one before, haven't we?
We've had John, a couple of times. Just once, I think.
Yeah. Once or twice. See if you have to go Old Testament.
Exodus.
Ooh.
Oh, we haven't had that.
Rip-roaring stories.
Yeah, but also, right now, particularly, everyone wants to go back to Egypt when it comes to local church. And I think some of that narrative is quite interesting too.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, great.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, another one for you, Gavin. Television channel. Your favourite television channel?
BBC One.
BBC One.
It's got Match of the Day.
Oh.
I've never had Sky Sports, right? There's a reason for this. There's a simple reason for this. It would ruin my marriage. I've been offered it a couple of times. My in-laws offer it to me like when it's a big birthday, whatever, 30th or 40th or whatever. Like, no, because I want to watch Plymouth versus Northampton. I've got no vested interest in the game. So the best thing is we compromise with BT Sport. But BBC One, I still think, best for dramas, best for sport, best for news.
Brilliant.
Great.
Excellent.
Okay, our third category is always a top 5. And it's perhaps, in some ways, a more predictable category than one might imagine or expect. Your top 5 Christian speakers or preachers.
I don't know that I've ever thought about something like that. I'm not sure I want to do a top 5. I don't do them in order.
No, that's fine.
But I'll do the 5 that have most influenced me.
Yeah.
Roy Crown, because he taught me how to preach the gospel. Ness Wilson, because I think she's one of the most gifted Bible expositors. Rob Parsons, he did a lot of work with me on how to communicate. Pastor Agu, great friend of mine, who has taught me to preach more expansively in a different environment. And Peter, because he preached the best sermon ever.
Brilliant.
Very good. All right, excellent. Well, we'll make sure references there on the podcast for people to look up all those people. It sounds a great selection.
Yeah, okay. So next one, your favourite band. Actually, no, it's a bit easy. Your favourite band beginning with B.
Blur.
Okay, that was easy.
So I was well into Britpop in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
What's amazing about my daughter now loves Britpop. She's just asked me, and I'm not sure whether it's a yes or no. I went to see this band a few times, but I wasn't a Christian, so she's just asking for me to take her to the Manic Street Preachers, who I loved as a young person. But I'm well into my vinyl. I don't know if you guys are into your vinyl, But
Not since 1982.
in my house, it's vinyl records or Spotify, nothing in the middle.
Okay.
Oh, right.
But we like our vinyl. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Brilliant.
Favourite song?
From Blur,
Yeah.
Part Life.
Yeah.
Oh, I
it's
thought
great.
it was
Easily.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Well, our final category is we also have multiple choice. So I'll give you 3 possible answers. So the final category is your favourite wise man. So it's a multiple choice. The 3 options for probably not the 3 options you may be expecting. Melchior, one of the wise men in the nativity story, who mysteriously was only named in the 15th century somehow. Secondly, someone else now is also associated with Christmas, Ernie Wise. Or thirdly, Wimbledon crazy gang FA Cup winning midfield maestro Dennis Wise. So Melchior, Ernie Wise, Dennis Wise.
That's easy. It's Dennis Wise because it's the only one I've met.
Oh, you met him? Yeah.
Very, very small man.
Is he still a Wimbledon favourite, Dennis Wise?
Not
Because he spent
so
so
much.
much time at Chelsea.
And he also managed Millwall. There's a few.
Oh, yeah.
And also, he wasn't that good for us. You talk about him. I mean, we had Nigel Winterburn, we had Stuart Pearce, we had Fashanu, Vinnie
Yeah.
Jones.
Big
I mean,
Fash, didn't you?
these players, it's a different level.
Yeah.
Robbie Earl was the best we ever had.
Nice. But anyway, you've been working very hard, Gavin, and that brings us to what may seem like a slightly odd part of the show, but we think we can get a unique insight into people through knowing what they would have in a perfect packed lunch. Now, as various boring logistics have meant that it wasn't practical for you to bring your lunchbox along today, Gavin, it gives us the luxury of hearing what would be in your truly perfect packed lunch. And so we ask you the question...
Tell us, Reverend, what's in your lunchbox?
Yes, tell us, Reverend, what would be in your lunchbox?
If it was a perfect day, then it would be a takeout from Dishoom round the corner, which is the coolest curry house in London.
Then?
And what it'd be a naan bread roll full of chicken or lamb tikka with a bit of their chutney and a bit of their chili greens in it. Then to convince myself I was being healthy, I'd probably have a Diet Coke. And I'm not big on puddings, so that would probably do.
Okay,
That would do,
okay. Yeah.
That sounds nice. And we did actually go there for
we tried,
breakfast
yeah,
this
it was
morning.
really good.
Did you have the naan bread rolls?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I like the sausage and egg naan bread rolls, very nice.
Yes. No, we had one of those. So,
That was an interesting story.
we'll
wasn't
join
it?
that
It was great.
recommendation. And here at Take A Pew, we're very glad to recommend Dishoom. But that was very nice. Well, that was good. That would keep you going, and makes such a nice change from a mouldy old sandwich and an apple or something.
Yeah,
Which is-
token piece of fruit.
Yeah, no, you got to own your lunch, haven't you? Really? I mean, to be fair, sandwiches. I mean, in my job, you'd be amazed how many times you go places and it's the same old sandwiches, and you're like, nah, mix it up.
Well, brilliant. Well, that sounds like it would be magnificent. So we'll just take a little break now while we all dream of naan rolls filled with chicken or lamb.
Take a pew.
And welcome back. We are taking a pew with the Reverend Gavin Calver.
We are indeed. To be honest, we're all feeling a bit peckish now.
Oh, I'm starving.
No, but let's crack on. Gavin, we've explored your journey thus far. So, what do you see when you look into the future?
I think I'm just at the very beginning of my time here at the Evangelical Alliance. So I see a good decade ahead of real challenge, actually. I mean, I know we like banter and stuff, but let's be honest, we're facing the greatest secular tsunami in living memory. And yet the importance to stand firmly on God's word, be brave and kind, move forward, unite the church, and see a mighty move of God that we dream of. So I think I see that as the forward trajectory.
Yeah.
I think I also look at the UK and think it's a fascinating few years ahead. You know, whatever you think about Brexit, it's mixed things up. COVID's then come along. No one's quite sure whether they're coming or going. It's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You also, from a sporting point of view, England have got to win a World Cup in the next decade with the squad of players they've got.
You think so?
You look at all this, and then the other side as well, as I look ahead, is we are loving this phase of life. We've just been on holiday recently, and with our 11 and 14-year-old, right, we're youth workers at heart, as I said, from Youth for Christ. So we're doing something for them now is playing tennis with them, not changing a nappy or clearing something up. I'm really looking forward to the next few years of seeing my kids grow up as well, because I think that I meet a lot of people that moan about being parents, but it's the greatest privilege. So that'll be fun.
It's exciting times. And of course, you've got to find the Tier Fund and Spring Harvest equivalent, haven't you?
Do you know what? My ego can deal with being the first generation not to. I think we've got enough charities, haven't we?
Yeah, all right. Well, we wish you every blessing in whatever God may have in store for you. And as I gaze into the immediate future, I can see the end of the show looming.
Oh, just this episode, mate. Not the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, well, not quite yet, I hope. But regular listeners will know that this final straight of the show always sees us scale new heights in the theological and intellectual discourse.
Yeah, yes.
Good.
Yes, indeed. So in a moment, Gavin, we'll hopefully be able to bring us your spiritual pearl of wisdom. But just before that, we'd like to enlist your help in addressing another slightly troubling theory that we've heard in matters of faith in the Bible, haven't we, Ian? And we call this part of the show...
Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true?
Yes, is it true? We have this feature, Gavin, because we read many weird and wonderful claims about the Bible, and we see it as our responsibility here to set the record straight with the help of our guests. Now, this time, this has worked out really well because our quandary concerns the book of Acts. And I know that you and I both love the book of Acts. And we've read on the internet that despite Luke's normally meticulous eye for detail, he fails to mention that Paul, on his Mediterranean missions, actually travelled aboard his own 280-foot luxury super yacht, the Gospel of the Seas. So, Reverend Gavin Calver, is it true?
If it is, it changes a lot of stuff, doesn't it? If Paul had a luxury yacht, goodness me, how's it taken this long to have a climate emergency? I think if it was, it got shipwrecked quite often, didn't it?
Yes. Well, it makes some sense because because we know he was a tent maker. And the other thing I heard that when he was quite a young man, he got a very lucrative contract with Millets for the supply of tents. So that's what, and he also had a business of selling second-hand coats. Because he would go to stonings and people would lay the coats at his feet. And while that was going on, he'd nip off down the market and flog all the coats. A very entrepreneurial young man.
Yeah, well, do you know what? He probably was actually very entrepreneurial. You know, and he's he's an incredible turnaround in personality, using of his skills for good. Yes. Not quite how you describe. No. But you know, it's good to deal with myth.
Yes.
And it gets me thinking too, do you know, if this Evangelical Alliance stuff doesn't work out, maybe I'll sell some coats.
Just
to
get a
someone
boat.
and-
Yeah, just
No,
get a boat.
I think I'd sell second-hand motors, to be honest. I think I could do that. That'd be all right. Dodgy motors. Do you know, if it was true, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously is ridiculous, but if it was true, it's
What do you mean
amazing.
it's ridiculous. How dare you?
It's amazing how much of your understanding of Paul has suddenly changed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's shining a new light on something. It's quite an interesting challenge, isn't it? Anyway, there we go.
I think it's rigged. Anyway.
Yeah, really.
Okay.
Well, and with that, Gavin, perhaps you would bless us with your spiritual pearl of wisdom.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
I think this is very much for right now. I think right now, people around us have been in the same storm but in different boats. We've heard that a lot. Therefore, as the church, we're going to have to treat people differently. We have got to ask the Lord for new reservoirs of compassion. You see, we're living with the greatest opportunity for the gospel in living memory. After the Second World War, church attendance went up off the charts for 18 months. After 18 months, it went down below pre-Second World War levels. Why? Because the church looked after itself instead of looking after the lost who were asking questions at that time. It won't be in your buildings at the moment, it will be in digital spaces, over garden fences, in communities. But people are crying out for Jesus. What we need to do is show people compassion and not assume they've all been through the same thing. When Jesus visits Mary and Martha, who've both lost their brother, they've both been through the same thing. One's overwhelmed in their heart, one's overwhelmed in their mind. One's full of questions, one just weeps. What I love about Jesus is, with Mary he weeps, with Martha he answers her questions. They've been through the same thing, but he treats them as individuals. He then changes everything, by the way, by raising Lazarus to life. He has to say, Lazarus, come out, because it's a communal tomb of 15 dead people. If he just says, come out, they all would have done. It's lucky Lazarus wasn't a common name. Can you imagine if three of them had come to life? He said, not you, sunshine, not you, it's that one I want. But this Jesus treated people with such compassion and looked at them in that way. And I think the key for us in this season is to not think everyone's experienced what you've experienced. Is to not think you know necessarily where they're at, but actually to ask the Lord for compassion. Because we need to treat every person as an individual. We need to reach out to them in the way they need to be reached out to. And then we need to tell them of the hope we have in Jesus. Because the biggest thing about this season for me has been, what's different when you face the coronavirus pandemic with Jesus than if you don't face it with him? If there's nothing different, what are we doing? And so what's different between me and my neighbours? So as we show compassion to people, we get to also share the hope we've had. What has it meant to stand on the rock of ages with the shifting sands of culture going on around us? There's never been a greater moment to tell people of your faith, but we must do it with compassion and treat everyone as individuals. And let's not miss that, particularly this time of year.
It's a spiritual pearl of wisdom.
Well, thank you very much for that, Gavin. Very inspiring of the moment. And that brings us to our very last, and indeed our very worst, regular feature, which is, I'm so sorry to say...
Simon's Random Question.
Simon, what's your random question for Gavin?
Well, Gavin, you've mentioned being a keen runner. Okay, so my random question for you is this. If you were in the Olympics, would you rather be in the 400 metres or the 5,000 metres?
Oh, yeah, good question.
Oh, wow. I think I'd rather be in the 400 metres. I would do awfully at both, but I would definitely do better at the 5,000.
Oh, sorry. Thanks for that Gavin. I forgot to mention, these are the novelty Olympics, Gavin. So if you were to take part in the 400 metres, would you rather do that crawling or hopping?
Yeah.
Hopping every day. At my age, getting down on all fours is a problem.
That would be, both of those would be quite, I mean, you'd do your knees in, wouldn't you?
Wouldn't
Definitely
hopping
crawling.
yeah.
Hopping would also do one of your knees in, unless you did alternate.
Yeah, you'd have to rotate, wouldn't you? You'd rotate the hops.
Yes.
I think it's doable. I think I could hop 400 metres.
Really?
I really
You
do.
could watch
Should we set that
changing
up?
foot? Yeah.
No, I definitely could hop 400 metres, but there's not a chance I could crawl 400 metres.
No,
absolutely.
that's probably a
Yeah.
very fair
All
point. So if it were the 5,000 metres, on the same basis as the Novelty Olympics, would you rather do the 5,000 metres on a pogo stick or a space hopper?
Oh no, space hopper. Reason being, I've got previous at this.
No,
I
right.
remember once at Spring Harvest having to do 5 laps of the youth venue on a space hopper with my face covered in shaving foam whilst all the kids threw whatsits at you. And then I literally finished this and I beat this guy who was a rapper and I was delighted. Right? And then they gave me the microphone and said, "You're going to preach now." So I preached with the whatsit half down here, this here, panting a little. But space hoppers in youth ministry are quite common.
There we go.
Pogo sticks are really hard.
Yes, they are. Well, I'm very impressed by that because when I was working in quite a large office in London, I'll say that because it was a large floor space, I think it was one of these fundraising days, and I was running this group and I said we'd have a space hopper race, a charity space hopper race just round the floor plan of which is probably about 100 metres, I think, and people almost died. I think there's a technique involved, but the amount of effort to use a space hopper is extraordinary. But
I think you'd be amazed that I probably have 7 or 8 novel skills, including bouncing on a space hopper, that youth ministry teach you, that perhaps I'm overestimating because I've been out for 6 years.
Yes.
But, these things are...
What are some of those? Can you juggle, Gavin?
Not very well, but just about.
All right, okay.
I tell you the one I'm rubbish at that people always think a youth work would be good at, 10-pin bowling. Because I never enjoyed it. But I'm quite good on the old table tennis. Okay. There's all kinds of random little niche things.
Yes, all sorts of skills coming out there. So, well, I think all of those events, frankly, Simon, sound miserable. But
Thanks for your vote of confidence.
Yeah, but that was...
Simon's Random Question.
And that really does bring us to the end of the show. Gavin, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you for being such a good sport. Thank you for some amazing spiritual insight and inspiration. And thank you for being on the show.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, dear listener, for joining us once again. We'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe to the Take A Pew channel or like the podcast, however you're listening. To be honest, we need all the help we can get.
We do.
Simon and I will bring you another episode of the Take A Pew podcast sooner than you probably want it. But for now, it's Toodlepip from me.
And tatty bye from me.
Join us again next time as we Take A Pew.
Take a pew.